So if you haven't heard by now, Claude just came out with their new model, Sonnet 4.5, and apparently it's the best coding model in the world. Well, we're going to read through it, go over the things that they're saying and that they've added to their applications. We're going to go through some examples, and so you can see everything that is involved with this new model and their new updates, because there is quite a lot. Well, to start off, Claude Sonnet 4.5 is the best coding model in the world, strongest at building complex agents and at using computers. It shows substantial gains in reasoning and math. They're releasing it along with a set of major upgrades to their products. In Claude Code, they've added checkpoints, one of the most requested features that we're going to go into, that save your progress and allow you to roll back instantly to a previous state. And that is actually a pretty helpful feature. They shipped a native VS Code extension where they've added a new context editing feature and memory tool to the Claude API. In the Claude apps, they brought code execution and file creation for spreadsheets, slides, and documents directly into the conversation, which is really nice because now we can simply talk, using the Claude application, which we'll also go through an example of, and we can bring documents in, have it retrieve information from the web, and then it can create all of these documents that we can use and just easily download or put into Google Drive. And this is going to be a recurring theme with this document, that if you're a Mac user, you have early access, or you just have straight up access now to some of these other features. So they have a Claude for Chrome extension available to Mac users who have joined the waitlist last month. I am not a Mac user, so I will not be able to show you an example of that. But if you are, let me know how it is. They also came out with what is a breaking change. If you were using the Claude Code SDK, whether using Python or TypeScript, they are now renaming it Claude Agent SDK. And a lot of it has been reorganized. And so they're saying that this reflects the SDK's broader capabilities for building AI agents beyond just coding tasks. Okay, so if you come into this, a lot of things are going to be new. And like I said, there are breaking changes, okay? Not everything that you've done may be breaking and I'm sure that inevitably you will have to move over to the Claude Agents SDK, but there are some. So when you come in here, the breaking changes over here, just make sure that you are looking at this, and whenever you do move over, just make sure you make the updates, okay? I'll have a link for this so that you are aware of that. And we'll go over an example of how to use the Claude Agents SDK here soon. All right, so let's get into the benchmarks, which are totally not biased, and just see how good Claude Sonnet 4.5 is. Well, let's start off with the software engineering benchmark. And as you can see, Sonnet 4.5, Opus 4.1, and Sonnet 4 are all better than literally probably every other model. Even Sonnet 4 being better than GPT-5 Codex and GPT-5. Whenever you see these, right, make sure you take these with a grain of salt. I don't want to say this is biased. I don't want to say it's not biased. But whenever a company is doing their own research into their models, of course, they're not going to say that all these other models beat their models, right? And honestly, what is this, this top portion here? What is this right here? What is that little area? I don't understand. Why is that some of that transparent? Because if you took out the transparency, the Opus 4.1 Sonnet 4 would be the same or worse than GPT-5 Codex. So I don't even know what that means, right? But it's fine. They're probably just saying that it is better. The only thing I really take away from this is that Sonnet 4.5 probably is better than Opus 4.1 and Sonnet 4. Generally, this is an improvement, of course, from their Claude Sonnet 4 model. Okay, but even it looks like it's the best in overall a lot of these categories. I don't know where exactly they're taking all of these benchmarks from. But generally, all I would take from this is that it's better than its previous models. Okay, and here are their benchmarks for general capabilities. So agentic coding, tool use, computer use, high school math competitions, graduate level reasoning, etc. Generally, their model is the top performing model overall in these categories. Some of the ones at the bottom where it's language and reasoning, it's not necessarily the best, but it's better. It's better than the previous model, which is really, you would assume that would have to be the case, right? You really just assume that. But again, it would be better to know exactly how they're doing this, which they do actually show at the bottom here. They have their methodologies of how they took these benchmarks, or probably where they got them from, or how they sampled them, things like that. But again, take these with a grain of salt still, because for this to actually be better than GPT-5, I don't necessarily 100% believe that. Not saying it's not a step up than the previous model, but I'm just saying I'm not so sure that this is better as much as they're saying it is. Here they're saying with finance, law, medicine, and STEM, it's just better. That's just overall, it's just better. So they showed us this, they also have this misaligned behavior score. So basically what this means is, first off, lower score is better. So that's why they're kind of highlighting this. But basically when you have like deception, power seeking, encouragement of delusions, and compliance with harmful system prompts, you don't want it to do that. You want it to stray away from those kind of things. Right. And so a lower score is better in these charts. And they're saying that it does a good job of like removing itself essentially from those kinds of metrics. With the Claude Agent SDK, it's the same infrastructure that powers Claude Code, but it shows a benefits for a wide variety of tasks, not just coding. And as of today, you can use it to build your own agents. And you know, what is nice about having a library like this is that yes, you don't have to open Claude Code, or you don't have to open Claude in a terminal anywhere to use these agents. You know, you can build these sub agents and you can have these programmatically inside of an application or something like that, right? To create or do whatever it is that you want to do, right? So if you want to create like a software engineer that can look at code, edit it, and then push commits to your GitHub repo, you know, you could have the power of Claude agents do that programmatically. And they are releasing a temporary research preview alongside 4.5 called Imagine with Claude. And so this video, if you want to watch this, basically what's saying is that it doesn't like think about the code and then write the code. Supposedly it just writes the code on the fly as it goes. And then what it's doing is in real time, it's responding and adapting to how or what you're saying and interacting with it, right? I guess they're really trying to show how quickly, instead of thinking, it's just going to code it. And along the way, as it's coding, it's going to help figure out what you need to do. So, you know, but the thing is, it's available to max subscribers for the next 5 days. Today, I'm recording this on the 30th. This will hopefully be out today or tomorrow. So you have a couple days left if you're watching this video to try this out again for max users. Okay, so we're gonna get into the first thing here. So over here, I have a project called Claude Agents. When I talked to Claude, I had it create a simple fast API server. So actually created main py, the readme, and the requirements.txt. And the main Python file was the fast API server. And then I had it create another simple GET request. So it created lines 54 to 56 here about just retrieving items that are in stock. Okay, so with the latest updates, they created, that we talked about the checkpoints. So if you type in /rewind, okay, now we can restore the conversation to a previous point. So if I press enter and I'm scrolling here, it said, can you help me create a fast API server? It created the 3 files I just mentioned. And then now can you add one more endpoint? And I think it's probably added another space with that. So we come back all the way down here. So what I can do though, is I can go back up. Let's go to, can you help me create a fast API server? I want to go back to there. So I can then say restore code and conversation. So if I just go ahead and restore the code, I now don't even have that code at all because it restored it up to that point of when I had that conversation. So if I then say rewind, I can now, let me go to great. Now can you add one more get endpoint? That was the conversation. So if I go here, I say restore code, you can see it's going to add 143 lines. So if we do that, now we have our main Python, readme, and requirements.txt back in our project, but we don't have that one get request that I mentioned. So let me type it again, rewind, and let's go back to this one, or probably where I said release notes. This means that now it's going to restore those 4 lines of code where I had asked it to make that get request. So I can restore the code and there it is, right? It just added that back in. So that's a pretty good feature. I think that will be really helpful, especially in Cursor, that I have had to have it rewind. I'm not using rewind now, but go back to a previous state because it edited something and it just made everything wrong. After a couple iterations, it made everything wrong. So here with Claude Code, if you're using that, then it makes it easier to go back to a specific state. Now, I mentioned the breaking changes for Claude Agents SDK, right? So make sure you do this, but it is fairly simple to install and start using this if you have not used the Claude Code SDK. And if you haven't, now you will just be using the Claude Agents SDK. So if you're like me, you'd be using Python. So here is how you would install the SDK. Now they have two different ways you typically use it, right? Or how you would interact with Claude Code. You have Query and Claude SDK client. Query is just kind of like if you don't need to keep the session, you just kind of have a kind of one-off request. Kind of like if you're just talking to ChatGPT, you're like, hey, build this for me real quick, but you don't need to continue the conversation later. You just want whatever that is that you're building, right? You would use Query. Or Claude SDK client would be if, you use the same session, you have multiple exchanges within that same context, you want more control. And with that, it also supports streaming. You can interrupt, you have hooks, custom tools, etc., right? That's basically using your agents. Here's an example of how that would look. So I would have a main method. Here are Claude agent options. I'm just the system prompt, right? And now there are, for the permission mode, accept edits, there are a total of 4 different permission modes. I chose accept edits. What that basically means that I wanted to just go ahead and create or edit any files on the working directory. So here I'm in the working directory. I'm basically in this project. And so I had already ran this and I said, create a Python web server. And it went through a bunch of conversation by itself because I just let it go ahead and do that. And then it created a web server Python right here, kind of just basically in one shot, right? Because I'm using Query. So if we go back to here, I'm using the Query method. So I just wanted to kind of one-off, just create this, don't, do much else with it. And it worked relatively simply. So here it created it, it's on localhost 8000, and here are the basic endpoints. And here it is. This is the one I created just showing me the current time that I'm recording this. Okay, now with the Claude app, we talked about where it said that you can now create documents, spreadsheets, PDFs, those kind of things. You can actually, you can have integrated with, Google Drive, or you can just download it on the spot, right? So how do we do that? Well, if you go to Claude, if you open up the Claude app, if you update it, if you haven't, then you go to settings. Then if you go to general, let's go to configure for Claude settings. And then if we go to chat features, I believe this is here. Yes, at the bottom here, there's the code execution and file creation. Check that or turn it on. And this is now going to allow us to create all of those documents. So let's go ahead and start a new chat. And what I've done is I have a kind of a to-do list. I just had ChatGPT actually create a to-do list and a CSV file with a bunch of different times and everything. And what I want to do is I wanted to create a PDF giving me any graphs or anything, telling me how I can optimize my time for all these to-dos. Okay, and so now what it's going to do is it's basically going to be using code to create the PDF document for me. So it's going to examine the CSV file that I had created with a bunch of to-dos and prioritizing them and putting them in different categories. And so then once it reads that, now it's going to go ahead and create the comprehensive PDF document with time optimization analysis. And I'm hoping that it's going to have nice visualizations. And as you can see here, it's creating the Python script. If you're not really familiar, even if you do this in ChatGPT, it's really just using Python in the background or whatever, it's using libraries in the background, coding it, and then it outputs into a format for you. And that's really what's happening here. You can actually probably see what libraries it's using, right? So it's using Pandas, Report Lab. Yeah, I think that's like basically the biggest one. Bytes.io for us to download the file, NumPy, etc. Right? So it's going to go ahead and do all this. Here's the function to actually create the PDF. So it's mounting it on the outputs directory. It's going to be called time optimization strategy whenever we go to download it. But this is pretty neat because now what we're going to do is we're going to have this information and we can have it search the web also. We could have had say, hey, can you search the web also to help find other ways? Maybe other top CEOs have done this, or not even CEOs, right? Like other managers or people in management areas that maybe have written best-selling books, etc. Right? That could help us with this specific document. Okay, so it finished. Here I just clicked on view my time optimization strategy. So it's kind of given me, okay, so summary, here's an analysis. Here are some nice visualizations, right? Basically, this is a 13-page document. So it gave me different priority matrix, optimization strategies, an action plan to choose. I don't know why I tried to click that. Productivity tools. So basically, it did create a comprehensive list, right? And I can just download this onto my local computer now. If you haven't, say hi to my daughter's green ducky. I don't even remember his name. I'm not even sure if it's a boy or girl duck. I don't even know. So anytime a model comes out, right? Anytime, that company is always going to say that their model is better than everybody else. I mean, I don't know a benchmark where I've seen overall the model, they've said that the model hasn't been better, but that doesn't mean it has been. We've seen recently where, you know, there's been some things happening with Claude, and GPT-5 has generally been better. I mean, not everybody's opinion is going to be the same, right? You have your own opinions, of course, so use it. If Sonnet 4.5 for your use case, for what you're doing, is better than other models, then great, right? Overall, a model can be worse, but it can be better depending on what you're doing. I still really like Claude. I still personally, I don't know, if you browse Reddit, you'll probably see that I'm not in the majority of people that actually like Claude code. I think Claude Sonnet has always done really well for me, especially whenever it goes to editing and whenever I give it good markdown files, to help guide and steer it to making the better choices for updating my code. But it's all up to you on what you think. So please let me know in the comments. Have you tried Sonnet 4.5 yet? Have you liked it? Has it not worked well? Do you still think GPT-5 is better? Please let me know down in the comments below. And in the meantime, here are some more videos for you to watch.